This is the last week of Joshua.
Wow. We made it.
Now, when I put this down to PDF, this file, this PowerPoint has done some upgrades, and I haven't figured out how to get this page to print because it's called 3D, but it's so cool.
That's very pretty.
It
The
is.
pages, you know, it looks like, just flying over the trees.
Mm-hmm.
So, Father, as we look at the farewells of these last 3 chapters of Joshua, and as we say farewell to our study of Joshua, may the truths we have stored in our hearts be brought to our remembrance, even as the memorials that were set up in Joshua's time reminded your elect nations of your faithfulness. Now bring us to our knees as we complete our study of Joshua. May our generations and the next serve and choose our God with strength and courage. Amen. I hope that today you keep Ukraine on your minds. Russia did move in and are bombing Ukraine right now. So, it just, my heart goes because there's a lot of good Christians in Ukraine, a lot of Orthodox.
So sad.
It really is, isn't it? It totally breaks my heart. My heart just, like I've always said, they say you groaning to the Lord. That groaning, I understand that groaning. It's like your heart is just doesn't even know how to put it in words, does it?
Yeah.
Spirit does, huh?
Yeah. And I wish people would stop not believing that Putin won't do what he says.
Well, yeah.
It's like, come on, people. He made a recording.
Oh, yeah, I guess he will do this.
Yeah, like on Fox today, they said that because I turned on briefly, excuse me, to see if the schools were in online or whatever. Anyway, they said he made an announcement to his nation. He recorded it 3 years ago. The man has everything planned out.
Oh my gosh.
5 years ago, they said the date that they would move in, and it was 2/22/22. It's a special date to them. And that's the day they started moving in. They have it planned, and they've had it planned for a long time.
Which means they're well prepared.
Yes. Anyway, Joshua 1-5, we talked about it. It's Joshua and Israel's preparation to take their land, and they crossed the Jordan. And then 6-12, Joshua led the battles to conquer the land. 13-21, Joshua apportioned the land to the tribes of Israel. These are your segment divisions, okay? So what are Joshua 22 about? Are these chapters another segment? What do you think?
Oh, definitely. They're the farewell and statements and a reiteration of remember what God's done. We need to be faithful.
Yeah. Yeah, the 22.5 tribes built an altar. Joshua 23, that's in Joshua 22, 2.5.
I was thinking 22.5,
Yeah, sorry. Joshua spoke to Israel, keep the law, cling to God, and love him. In Joshua 24, Joshua made a covenant and died. This segment is about the land at rest. Joshua said his final words to Israel. This was the end of an era, wasn't it?
Yeah. Just like the end of Moses's era.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, my stuff's out of order. How'd that happen? Or did I just lose some page? Oh yeah, I just lost a page, that's all. So Joshua 22, who and what are verses 1-9 about? Joshua chapter 22, day 1 of homework.
The Reubenites, the Gadites, and half tribe of Manasseh. And he tells them to go home to the land that they are their inheritance.
And what does he do with, he makes some commandments?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. What were they?
To love the Lord your God with all your heart, walk in all his ways, and keep his commandments. Hold fast and stand firm and serve him.
And serve him, yeah.
Urban.
By the way, this is rest means the freedom to live in one's own land without fear of war, without any surrounding nations. Rest is the goal of the conquest. Wonder how that applies to America today. When you look at surrounding nations, look at what's going on the north and the south of us.
Well, I was just thinking, as she was talking about that, and you said rest, the Ukraine, they simply want to be their country. They
Yeah,
don't want to be invaded. You know, we don't think about that because we're not in the middle of Europe. We do have northern borders and southern borders. But when you think about these countries that are just bordered all around,
Yeah.
war and rumor of wars, right?
I thought of that this morning as we were praying. I thought of that this morning.
Yeah, I even mentioned to Ben, I sit there and I go, do you not see, you know, the signs of the times at the end time? You know,
Yeah.
and he goes, yeah. He goes, even he says, yeah, he goes, it is worse in this lifetime than he's ever seen it. And he's, you know, in his 70s. You know, I mean, we've lived a lot while. You know,
Yeah.
we've seen things, but I've never seen it this bad. So how does Numbers 32, 1 through 33, which is basically the whole book of whole chapter of Numbers, relate to this? Because we're talking about the 2.5 tribes. So what does Numbers tell us about the 2.5 tribes?
They were the first ones to take possession east of the Jordan, right?
Yes. They defeated who? I'll make it simple. The Amorites.
Yeah, the Amorites.
Yeah, and the 2.5 tribes said what?
We like this land. Can we just
We-
stay here?
We'll just stay here. That's cool, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
But what did they agree to?
that they would go and help fight for the rest of the tribes, and then they would return to the.
Correct, until they were secure in the land. So in Joshua 22, all the land was in Israel's control. And the 2.5 tribes kept their promise. All right, so that's real important to remember, isn't it?
It's a lot of this is about promise keeping.
Housekeeping?
Promise keeping.
Promise keeping, okay. Barbara's having trouble. Yeah, I guess you're seeing the Texas too.
Mhm.
Yes. So what happened in verses 10 through 20?
They started home and
Oh, they built that altar, huh?
yeah,
They returned home, took possession of the east side of the Jordan, and on the way built a large altar on the west side of the Jordan River. Phinehas, how do you say it? Phineas?
Phineas?
Yeah, the son of Eleazar. What did he do and why did he do it? He heard a rumor. What was the
Yeah.
rumor?
That they were following other gods. I mean, that was what they feared, right? They'd already
Yeah.
broken the covenant.
mhm.
Yeah, because there's two other, in verses 17 and 20, there are two other acts of rebellion. 17 is not the iniquity of the pure earth enough for us, for which we have not cleansed ourselves to this day, although a plague came upon the congregation of the Lord. And on 20, did not Achan the son of Zerah act unfaithfully in things under the ban?
Mhm.
Okay, and the congregation of Israel, and that man did not perish alone in his iniquity, remember?
Yeah.
So they're saying, hey, this has happened before,
Let's not do this again.
right? Why would you not want to do it again?
God punishes the whole congregation.
Yeah, they'd seen God's punishment, right?
Hmm.
He doesn't just do the guilty person.
What, Jan?
He doesn't just punish the guilty person, he punishes everyone.
Absolutely, yeah. It's everyone who got punished, not just the guilty person. So why were they be ready to go to war against their own brothers? What does Deuteronomy say?
Kind of rebellion.
Yeah, rebellion.
Mhm.
Mhm.
There's Lou. Anything else? What were they to do if they were serving other gods?
They were to be utterly destroyed.
Yeah, utterly. Didn't that word just utterly destroyed? That makes it more, if they heard worthless men had seduced the inhabitants of a city to serve other gods, then they were to investigate thoroughly. This is what Deuteronomy says. Go and check it out. If it was true, they were to utterly destroy the city and all in it. The 9.5 tribes investigated before going against the 2.5 tribes. So they were actually following the law, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
So how does 1 Corinthians 5 relate to this?
There was immorality in the church and they didn't
They talk-
remove the person from the church community.
Right.
They didn't mourn their sin.
Yeah, they just let it go and overlook it, didn't they?
Right. Right.
How much of that goes on in the church now?
Whoa.
A lot.
That's
A
not,
whole
the-
lot.
you know, that. Yeah.
Have you ever had to deal with something like that?
Hmm.
I have. And you know what I did? I followed what scripture said to do. Confront the person
Individually.
individually. Now, I did skip the second part because I didn't want everybody in the church to know, so I went straight to the pastor and he took care of it.
Good for you.
Yeah. I had a lot of stuff thrown at me for a while, but it was like, this isn't right. And the reason I really did it, to get down to, they had 3 children living in the house.
Mm.
And a man and a woman was sleeping together.
Mm.
And I really had gotten attached to the kids. So what happened in verses, back to Corinthians, just as Phinehas and the leaders of the 10 tribes were concerned about sin among the people, the church should also confront sin within it. The Lord commands that the church should remove sin. He is a holy God. And we just let that slide to so much, don't we?
That's
Or the
all
church,
now.
a lot of churches. I don't
What is
think my-
all- now is all the big church leaders. Now it's come out that their own immorality, and it's been swept under the rug for so long. It's just awful.
Yeah, that is sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they confronted their brothers and they discovered what?
They misunderstood.
Mm.
So does that kind of thing happen now?
Oh yeah.
Were the 9.5 tribes right in confronting the other 2.5?
Absolutely.
Yes.
What would have happened if they had not investigated?
A lot of resentment.
They would have gone and destroyed their land.
Yeah, it would have. It would have destroyed the land, because God said this land's holy. So what was the reason they built the altar? What they gave the reason.
as
Yeah,
a witness and a memorial
Witness to what?
that
Did
they
he-
were crossing the Jordan and going back to where their land was, but it was a witness to the union of the two groups.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of special, isn't it?
yeah.
Mhm.
And the Lord is called the mighty one in this chapter. Did you catch that?
Mhm.
Anything else in chapter 22 that caught your attention?
You know what struck me is I thought back to Psalm 1 where it says, don't walk in the way of the wicked or stand in the path of the ungodly, but your delight is on the law of the Lord.
Hmm.
So that thing about don't hang out with people who are evil because it's going to cause you to stumble. And that was the warning all through all this. And they were worried about their fellow Israelites.
I think it was more of a true thing, except, they were prepared to go to war against them.
It's like they went from all the way to the extreme instead of contemplating what it could have been instead of, observing other gods.
Thinking the worst of people.
Hmm.
Well, I think they had a lot of fear from the other
Yeah.
experiences too.
Yeah, because they knew if they were sinning and they didn't do anything about it, God would come down and take care of it, right?
Yeah.
Because they'd seen it
Yeah.
before.
Mhm.
Okay, if you look on page 75, you filled out the Joshua's words in chapter 23. I kind of struggled through that, but I think I got through it. How about you all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of, okay, what does she want here? So if you're looking at that, one of verses 1 through 13 about in chapter 23 of Joshua. Now it came about after many days, and we don't know how many days that was, do we?
Mm-mm.
Years and years.
Could have been. But he was already old and decrepit before, or old and advanced in years. Decrepit. I feel decrepit sometimes, And when the Lord had given rest to Israel from all their enemies on every side, and Joshua was old and advanced in years. And Joshua did what?
He called for all the Israels
Yeah,
to get together.
let's get together. What did he do? He reminded them of what the Lord had done for him and that he had fought for him, right?
Mhm.
They had their land. And then we looked at Deuteronomy 17 through 24, just to remind us of what?
This was not new.
He reminded us that God promised to clear out the nations and give Israel the land, and that he did it.
Keeps his promises.
And that God would still fight for him.
Mhm.
In 6 through 11, it lists the commands. What commands were listed? If you've done your little side writing on your, I think it was even in your homework, or you could write it in your Bible, or you could write it on your observation worksheets. This would be a list that you would make. What were the list of commands that he gave in verses 6 through 11?
All that is written.
Obey what is written.
Do not turn aside.
Pardon me?
Do not turn aside.
Yeah.
Do not associate with the nations that remained among them, or mention the name of their gods, or make anyone swear by them, or serve them, or bow down to them.
Cling to the Lord.
Don't cling to those nations and or
Right.
intermarry,
Right. Mhm.
because there'd be a snare and a trap until Israel perishes from the land.
Mhm.
We looked at 2 Corinthians. What did you learn? This is another thing that you can make a list of. There is no partnership in,
Devil and
You should not be bound together with unbelievers,
yeah,
especially in marriage
even
or
in
in
business
marriage.
partners too.
even if you agree with them, that is, I don't know. I still struggle with people that just believe something so different than I do. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because there's nothing in common between believers and unbelievers.
Mhm.
Do you understand that statement? Do you think that's too harsh?
And it sounds harsh to the outside world, doesn't it?
It does, Paula, doesn't it? Yeah. Uh, when those words come out of my mouth, like, well, I can't have any part of that. People look at, well, that's not very gracious of you. You aren't being very tolerant. What
Very
kind of,
inclusive.
yes, and
I
why do we not agree with that though? Do you
We
think?
don't want our belief and faith to be tainted or compromised by being around and exposed to the tolerance and stuff.
I think there's also the issue of, especially as a pastor, when someone begins talking to me, and they're not there yet, sometimes I have to be, okay, is God leading them? And am I an instrument of helping them find God and trusting that the Holy Spirit's at work in them? And so there's this area where a little bit of grace is needed, but it needs to be led by the Spirit. That makes sense at all? I mean,
That's a
yeah,
good way to put it, I think. What do y'all think? I think it's a good way to put it.
Mhm.
Because
I
when
think-
you go out in, say, in ministry, when you're going out and serving the indigent and the homeless and trying to draw, show them grace and love, and you've got to let the grace and the love lead you, but you still have to kind of watch to make sure that you're not taking in a lot of this that you're being exposed to at the same time.
I think that's a good way to put it. And I think it helps that you don't go and do that alone. You need to have people praying over you
Right.
to do that, to help you stay pure and holy. I'm part of the healing prayer folks, and we close with a prayer that asks God not to let any of the evil spirits and all that stuff stick with us.
Hmm.
There's this sense that, yeah, in ministry, we do step out into these awful places where sin is rampant because of that's what Jesus did. But we
Yeah.
need grace and protection over us. So deliver us from evil, lead us not into temptation. That's what Jesus told us to pray. So, man,
Diane Langley, what do you remember? What does that make a picture of to you and your study of Stephen's ministry? Do you remember that picture when you're reaching down to the pit?
Yeah, the pit,
oh,
right.
yeah, don't get in
You don't get down in the pit, but you're reaching down and helping pull that person out.
Yeah.
But you don't get down in there with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect picture of all this, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I was
Yeah.
reading something about that description, and it said that the edges crumble. So stay far back enough that, you don't
You help. Yeah.
Get
slip
pulled
and
down
fall
in.
in there because it's crumbled.
Yeah, I gotta put a sweater on. It's getting chilly. Sorry. I get code. Yeah, I mean, because there's a good book from Stephen's ministry. There's a lot of them, but there was one particular one. I'll have to find it and I'll tell y'all when it is. But it's one that I bought and handed out a lot for a lot of years. Well, it helps when you have the sleeves right side out, doesn't it? Yeah. There we go. Ah, okay.
Honey.
Well, the other
So-
part of that too is that Pit, you're holding on to Jesus.
Yeah.
So you don't get
Right.
sucked in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Believers are to be separate from the unbelievers as far as being bound with them. That's where marriage is. When I see a good Christian man or woman marry someone who's not a believer, you know they're going to have trouble.
Mhm.
You know, but I love him. Yeah, well, take control of your feelings because you can't control that. Believers live in the world but are not to be partners with it because the Lord is holy. You know, that's something I think we forget about. You know, the reason that we're doing is we need to stay holy because if we're not, that degrades our relationship with God, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So what does that look like in today? Kind of talked about it, but is there anything else comes to your mind?
Well, we talk about marriage, don't be married to an unbeliever, but you should not have a deep friendship with an unbeliever either. I mean, you can be friends and minister, but that deep friendship where someone can really influence you,
Yeah,
shouldn't be in that. And that can be hard.
it can be.
Well, partnering with people in business.
Yes, that's another
You
good
know,
example.
I've got a great niece that has a great business opportunity and the money is there. But I ask her, what are you going to do when you're not allowed by your board of directors to use your Christian principles? Well,
Mhm.
I'll just do it. And I'm like, no, you won't.
Yeah.
They're your board of directors and they have a vote. And we don't think about these things.
Mhm.
That
And what-
be in the
And what
world-
she's talking about, she's actually doing a ministry too, but
Yeah.
a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's a good thing. I'll put my bucks in, you know, and keep an oversight. And that's how the devil can get a hold of situations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that saying you're in the world and not of the world. We are surrounded by the world. We've got to be a light. We can't shelter ourselves away from everybody. We've got to give grace, but there's a whole big difference of being in and around the world and sitting down and becoming the world. It's just
And it's so easy to fall into it,
so
y'all.
easy. Yeah,
Mhm.
It can happen to you and you don't even know, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
So in verses 14 through 16, because it's a short chapter, how does this chapter end? And actually, you're
Gosh.
asked to look for a contrast.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I always struggle with those, don't you?
Yeah. Well, one contrast was God's fulfillment of his good works contrasted with the threats and destruction he will send if you don't obey him.
When you transgress, you'll perish from the land.
Mhm. So
All
that
things in
courage-
verses 15 and 16, Israel did, and the Lord drove them from the land.
Yeah.
So, do you think God will ever turn away from you? Isn't that what he's talking about?
Yeah. If we if we remain turned away from him, we don't want anything to do with him or obey him or serve him. Yeah.
People use those verses, I will never leave you and forsake you. And
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. But we have the choice. we can leave and we can forsake him. And he is, my dad always said the Holy Spirit is a gentleman. He will not force himself upon you. He may make your path of turning away very difficult. But if you choose, because if you remember, it says, choose you this day whom you will serve. He gives us a choice.
Mhm.
So that thing of, I've always struggled with, well, when I was a child, I was saved, but I chose to live my whole life without Jesus, didn't want any part of him,
Me
didn't
too.
want, therefore I still get to go to heaven because then when I was 7 years old, I chose Jesus.
I think you get a protection, I called it protection of my own stupidity. Because it was my choices,
Right.
but the reason I feel this way is because, and I've told you all the times that I have been stopped by something supernatural, when I would hear the word stop it, don't go any further, stop, don't, screaming in my head, and I think that was the Holy Spirit that actually saved me from dying 3
But
times.
you chose to stop.
But yeah, because I knew that voice.
You chose to hear that voice.
Yeah. And it's a protection, but I could have chosen not to listen to it. Very
Right.
easily I could have. I knew I had a choice.
Yeah.
Thank God I listened.
Choose you this day. When you hear that voice, make that choice. What are your
Yeah.
choice?
And after the first time, it kind of startled me. The second time, it was like, I better listen. The third time, it was not even a thought not to listen to it. It's weird. And I know other people have had that too. So in Joshua 24, we had some cross references. Well, Joshua called the Israel's leaders to Shechem, right? This is supposed to be a picture of today of Shechem. The thing about Israel and over there, even in the UK and stuff, there'll be ruins, that's been preserved or dug up, and they leave it there. But we looked at Genesis 12 through 12:6. What did you learn in your cross references here about?
It's an important place.
Yes. Yeah. Why is it important? That's the question with these cross references.
Well, Abram was passing through Canaan, and at Shechem, God appeared to him and told him that he would give the land to Abram's descendants.
Yeah.
So Abram built an altar there to the Lord.
Absolutely. So that's the first thing. So Abraham was there,
Mhm.
Father Abraham.
And then they bought the land for a very, who did they bury there?
Leah. That's where Jacob bought the land.
Mhm.
He
He
also
built
built
an
an altar.
And he named it Mighty God of Israel.
There we go.
Supposed to go to the Trade Center.
But okay, there was another little tidbit there.
No,
Jacob had his whole entire household bury the idols they had
idols.
brought from the land.
Mhm, yeah.
that was kind of strange to me. Everything else was, I would have buried it far away from that holy place myself, but
It's interesting to me too, how repeatedly there was another thing in that area. It was the Oak of Moreh.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the Oak of Moreh is where God appeared to Abraham. It was under the Oak of Moreh that they buried all these idols. And then it's again that was where I think Jacob's bones were put into that area, but there was another reference to that at the end too. It kind of stood out that it was all under that Oak of Moreh.
Yeah. Yeah. I looked at that Oak of Moreh and it was just, it was a tree. I was wondering if it had any.
It must have been a very impressive tree.
It must have, well, to be an
500
oak tree
later.
in Jerusalem, or I mean in Israel, yeah. They don't
been a
have,
si-
I mean, it was very they buried Joseph's bones there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was
Um,
given to the Levites or as one of their cities,
yeah,
and it was a city of refuge.
yeah. I had something about it. Keep Jericho, the rest of the land. Let me see. There was something else. I had something on that. This is 24. This is really the history that Jacob is telling him, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Shechem was important, and that's why he wanted them there because it had such history.
Well, it was like it was a holy place or a revered place.
So God gave Jacob and Esau to Isaac. To Esau, he gave the land Mount Seir, and the rest of it went to Jacob. He sent Moses and Aaron and plagues to bring his people out of Egypt. He brought them to the Amorites. He delivered Israel from Balak and Balaam. Remember that story? I love that one because of the donkey, talking
Mhm.
donkey. So God made promises in Deuteronomy 6:10 through 15. I have to go and look at that real quick because I can't remember. Anybody got that memorized in the back of their head? No. I was on day 5, Deuteronomy 6:10 through 15. And it came about when the Lord brings you into the land which he swore to your fathers. This is Moses talking and gives you all this stuff. And oh, I love this part. And of all good things which you did not fill, and hewn cisterns which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, and you eat and are satisfied, then watch yourself that you do not forget the Lord who brought you from the land of Egypt out of the house of slavery. You shall fear only the Lord your God and you shall worship him and swear by his name. You shall not follow other gods, any of the gods of the peoples who surround you. For the Lord your God in the midst of you is a jealous God. Otherwise, the anger of the Lord your God will be kindled against you, and he will wipe you off the face of the earth. Application. What do you think?
Yeah.
What about our country?
Well, it's a wonder we hadn't already been wiped off the face of the earth.
Well, he is patient, you know.
That's right.
He's waiting 400 years for our sin to reach its fullness.
Well, you know, you got a point there, Paula, because he gave the Amorites that much time, right?
Mhm.
I don't know how much further we could go though. When you look at things that are going on in this country, when your highest cause of death is abortion,
Oh,
that's, I mean, that's the #1 cause of death now. You know, I mean, I don't know how much further we could go.
Well, you know, you got to kill off the old people too.
Oh, hush, that's all of us.
But if you look back, you know, it looks awful, and it is awful. Look at Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Look
But
at
they-
instead of abortion, they were doing infant sacrifices, throwing those people to, was it what was the god?
Malak.
Molech.
Malak. Yeah, we couldn't.
Malak.
All I could think was Moloch. Malak.
You know, there's also Baal.
Yeah, that's right. But it looks, you know, the Asherah poles, all the things that happened at those things. We look as if it never happened. We are just a perverse generation that has never learned our lesson from, we've never learned our lesson from any kind of history, especially biblical history. You know, you read about the Caesars. You read about, they were filthy. They were, I mean, the Herods were awful people.
Remember how they went around and killed every kid under 2 years old in Bethlehem?
Well, yeah, but I was just reading about one of the Herods who would bring little boys into his baths to nibble like fishes. It made me sick.
Ugh.
So, you know, Satan has been alive and well since the beginning, and we have never had a handle on him until the crucifixion of Christ.
Hmm.
And then Christ will determine through God our Father when he returns and gets rid of him once and for all.
And how about the satanic churches and the witchcraft that's going on?
Oh, absolutely.
It's there, y'all.
It's alive and well.
So what did Joshua say in verses 14 and 15?
Choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Yeah, does anybody else have a placket with that in their house somewhere?
Yeah.
We were given one when we got married, so it's in our entryway.
Mhm.
Late, and I was thinking it was on my library shelves, but it's someplace.
Someplace. Put away other gods. Choose who you will serve. He challenged them to make a choice. They had followed the Lord because of Joshua's following him, but Joshua was about to die. And he knew what was going to happen, didn't he?
Yeah.
He told them, didn't he? That surprised me. You're not going to be able to do this.
I like what it said in 14. Serve him in sincerity and truth.
Yeah.
Not just lip service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy,
You know,
isn't
you
that the
can have a
truth?
house full of crosses and pictures of Jesus and Bible verses and live like hell. And Satan, you can just. I was telling him at church. No, I guess I was telling him someplace. Did I tell you all about the car I passed that had all the cross and the Jesus signs and the
Uh-uh.
all the Christian stuff? And I don't know what the guy in front of me did. There was a lady in front of me. She had all these signs. Then a guy, and I think he was going to turn into the right. Whatever he did, she didn't like it. She got out of her car at the stops and she was cussing and giving him the finger. And I was like,
wow.
well, so much for that car.
Wow.
That's a good witnessing, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe she had borrowed the car.
Oh, I would
Well,
never
what-
loan her mine then.
One thing that we have to realize too is that the closer we get to God and the more we turn our lives over to him, the bigger our target on the back for Satan to attack.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
if
was their
you-
response? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're not the threat to him.
But that's why we desperately, as adults with some maturity and some history, we need to pray for these young people in our churches that are coming up and becoming involved and doing things because they have a target and
Yes,
they
and it's bigger than ours.
need a prayer warrior. They need somebody standing in the gap for them. And, you know, so often I see our kids on Wednesday night just doing some amazing things with a group of neighborhood kids, 16, 18, that are coming now every Wednesday night. And they are circling those kids and they are mentoring those kids in the Bible study. Now, what's going to happen with those kids that they're mentoring? I don't know. They may go back to their neighborhood and never do a thing for Christ. But I can tell you our Christian kids are going to have a target on their back.
Especially when they
Satan will
go
not
out
take it.
into the colleges of today.
Yep, he will not take that sitting down.
One of my seminary professors told the story how she was not raised in a Christian home, but people that say invited her to vacation Bible school and all those things planted seeds in her life
Hmm.
that led her to Christ. So let's claim those kids, those
Yeah.
neighborhood kids for Christ, that what those teenagers are doing will bear fruit in their lives, that it's a seed being planted that the Holy Spirit will work through.
And that's what our job is. It's not that we're supposed to get in there and run their lives or anything. We're there to plant, throw seeds.
Yeah,
It's God's job to water it.
absolutely.
So what was their response in verses 16 through 18?
They said they would serve the Lord, for he is our God.
Yeah, we'll do it.
We'll do it. Yay.
Okay, then how did Joshua respond to that? In 19
You
through
will not
28.
be able to serve the Lord.
That was the one that got me. You're not going to be able to do this.
Not alone, not alone. I mean, that's what he's saying. You aren't able to
Yeah.
do that. To serve a holy and what?
He's a jealous
Jealous.
God.
Jealous God. Now, does that sound like the bad kind of jealousy?
No. He's jealous for their souls.
Yes.
He
You-
wants them to be saved.
He will not forgive them if they forsook him for other gods. Because he knew what was in the future for him, didn't he?
Mhm.
I wonder if he knew that because he didn't have, I will stay muted, Evelyn. Oh, music lesson. Because I forgot what I was gonna say.
Why did Joshua know?
Yeah, because you don't have him naming a successor, do you?
No, you don't.
Mm-mm.
I'm wondering if he knew there wasn't any strong leaders.
Good point.
I mean, I'm just thinking that we learn in Deuteronomy 14 through 21, there's no forgiveness for one who turns from God in his heart and lives like an unbeliever. He actually is an unbeliever and will suffer the consequences. This is where the study, and this is another one I'm thinking about redoing probably online, is John 1, 2, and 3,
Oh, yeah.
1st, 2nd, 3rd John.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you what, if you want some real harsh words of Christianity, that's where you go. That and James, right?
I would do that 1, 2, and 3 again. It was
Yeah.
so powerful.
It is, and I'm really thinking about doing that maybe next winter,
Yeah, I would
January,
like
February.
that. That was one of the
It's-
first ones I did, and I would like to do it again because I think I could really delve deeper,
Yeah,
into it.
I'm really that and Malachi. Malachi's another one that's just awesome and deep because it's the last Bible and our book in the Old Testament. It says, "Watch out." It's really good. Then Joshua made a covenant with the people as a witness in Shechem.
Mhm.
So how does the book end?
About the burial.
Yeah, 29 and 30, Joshua died at 110 years old, and he was buried in his inheritance. I bet that was real important to him. Verse
Mhm.
31,
Israel served God all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who survived him.
isn't
They
that nice?
knew what God had done for them.
They knew because they'd seen it, hadn't they?
Yeah.
So in verses 32 through 33, this is where Joseph's bones are buried at Shechem, and Eleazar the priest died.
Mhm.
Why would that be important to be noted?
Well, he's the son of Aaron.
He's the son of Aaron. He's also, it's
Very old.
symbolizing the completion of an era and the fulfillment of God's promises to the patriarchs. He was one of the last ones that actually saw all this happen.
Mhm.
The whole generation who had left Egypt came to an end, an epoch which reached completion. That was important. So this basically, okay, so the leaving from Egypt, the taking of the land, those people that had seen it all were now dead. Can you see? Then you have a new beginning, don't you?
Mhm. Mhm.
We looked up different things about Israel, Joseph's bones. Let's see here. And that was just, they were buried in the land of Israel where he wanted them.
That was-
Day 5 of homework, you look back at Joshua 1 and other references. What did you learn?
What are you asking?
What did you learn on day 5 homework?
Oh,
I just wrote, is that
Alright.
question 10? I just wrote that God keeps his promises.
well, without a page. Oh, there
Now
it
let
is.
me look. My pages are all messed up. Comes west of the Jordan, day 4, day 5.
You look at for babe. Huh?
I looked up Joshua. Joshua took the land and it had rest from war. Joshua 19, he finished dividing the land. Joshua 21,
But they always say, as God promised, as God promised, as God promised, and all those
Mhm.
references.
absolutely.
That's what caught my attention.
Yeah. The Lord did not fail Israel, but fulfilled all of his promises to him.
Yeah.
Because the Lord had promised Joshua that no man would be able to stand before him all the days of his life. Did that happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And the Lord promised he would not fail or forsake Joshua. In Joshua 24, it is clear that he kept all of his promises. He commanded Joshua to be strong and courageous, and he did it, to meditate on his word and be careful to do it, not to tremble or be dismayed. There was only one time recorded in the book of Joshua that he did not ask for the Lord's counsel, and that was with the Gibeonites, and that didn't end well, did it?
Not at all.
Joshua 24, he ended his life as a faithful servant to the Lord. And Moses was called the Lord's servant of Joshua in Joshua 1. And Joshua was called his servant at the end of the book.
Yeah.
So it's just God's promises. And like I've said before, if you can find a little book, those little pamphlet books,
Mhm.
that list out God's promises, get one and review it all the days of your life. Because he did not fail Joshua, and he won't fail us either. So what did you learn from this study and how it applies to your life?
He's always faithful.
He's always faithful, but very often our preparation, God does not, and I hope this music in the background is not too loud, but God prepared Joshua and Caleb for
Yeah.
a work that he had that was important. But he took time in the preparation. He put them in the right place at the right time before he needed them. And I look at why things have happened in my life so often, and I down the road I go, that's exactly why that happened.
Yeah.
That's exactly why those circumstances came into my life, not for God's goodness and glory then, even though it was present. It was for the lesson that was going to prepare me, or the strength that I was going to need down here, down the road. So
Yeah, isn't
that-
it amazing when you can look back and realize that?
and I think that brings back to me that scripture, in everything, give thanks. I don't have to be joyful. I don't have to be happy. But there is something that God is working on for his purpose and somehow using my life. So in everything, give thanks, because God is working.
It's in the oven.
yeah, that's good.
I think also that staying in the word,
Say that again.
staying in the word.
Yes, staying in the word.
That is, that is Joshua, that's what Joshua was told at the beginning, and that's what his last words had too, that there was no way, it was tied together, that there was no way that they were going to be able to stay apart from worshiping these other gods unless they stayed in the word.
Yeah, and because he continues said to Joshua to meditate on the word daily.
Yes, don't go to the right or the left. Stay in it.
Hi, Lou. It's good to see. Are you at home? You're muted.
I am at church.
Okay.
still didn't have power. It looks like a war zone back there.
That Ben was telling me that a lot of trees are down, especially the pine trees.
Oh, wow.
Trees and limbs, yeah.
Yeah, and it still looks like kind of I've seen it more wintry wonderland, but it's still winter wonderland out there, isn't it? The trees have ice on them.
Yeah.
So it's a good day to stay home. Our church electricity is still off. So it's going to be, I texted Father West. He texted me and goes, oh, by the way, the church has no power. And I go, yeah. I said, it's real funny. See here.
Well, I live about a mile from your church.
Pardon me?
I live about a mile from your church.
Yeah.
So that whole area is without power. USJ is closed today.
Lou, where do you live?
I live in Evergreen, if you ever heard of that.
Well, yeah, because I live in Willow Green.
Yeah. She's right around that area
So
too.
I'm right around that corner from you.
Okay. You're
I
off of
said-
Ashport? Is that
Yes.
right? Ashport, yeah.
I said, it's already planned to have it online. He said, I guess you already know this, but there's no power at the church. And I said, it's already planned to have it online. Thought of it last night. He watches over us old ladies. And I said, stay
true.
warm. He's a nutcase, I tell you what.
Speak for yourself about old ladies.
Well, he's in his 40s, so
Yeah.
we're old to him,
My kids are older than that.
Well, I need to talk to you anyway, Evelyn. So
Okay,
about Andrea, I have some questions for her.
okay,
I might need to get her phone number if that's all right and just text her.
sure.
Her stepdaughter knows cricket. We went over to her house and she was very gracious to teach me some things.
Yeah, she's the one with myasthenia gravis, and she's having some real issues the last couple days. So
Oh, she
Well,
is a
that-
sweetheart, y'all.
she's a physician who is struggling with the fact that she will never physician again, as she knew it. So,
Jan, you can understand that, can't you?
She's so young.
yeah, she is. Okay, I just lost a picture of you all and I don't know why. There we go.
You pushed a button, probably.
I did, yeah. There we
Yeah.
go.
So
But,
did you enjoy this study of Joshua? Was it different than you thought it would be?
It was more in depth
Yeah.
than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait till we get to Judges. I can just imagine. I'm kind of looking forward to studying Judges because there's so much in there that I've really just kind of read and just went, okay,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward